For significant figures, the rules apply when we're dealing with zeros. Is a zero significant or not? Now, a zero can show up at 3 different places in a number. You can have zeros at the beginning of a number, you can have zeros in the middle, or zeros at the end, right? And the rules apply depending on where the zeros fall. So if we first off look at a zero at the beginning of a number. Do you know what the rule is? If the zero is at the beginning of a number, is it significant? Is it sometimes, never, always? What's the rule for the beginning?
Does it have something to do with decimal?
It does not. Never. Zero at the beginning of a number is never significant. For example, I don't normally see numbers written like this, but if I saw the number 056, and usually we wouldn't write that, okay? Usually we would just write 56. But if I saw 056, that number only has 2 sig figs, okay? Just the 5 and the 6. The 0 is not significant. The most common place for me to see a 0 at the beginning of a number, though, is when it's a placeholder, right? For example, this 0, the second 0 here, that's a placeholder. Is that 0 significant?
Yes.
No, because zeros at the beginning of a number are never significant. Okay? The only significant digits in 0.056 are the 5 and the 6. Now, let me tell you what a lot of people think when we talk sig figs. A lot of people think, oh, well, if it's significant, then that means that's the only numbers I have to write down. If a number's not significant, that means I can just leave it off. Well, if I had the number 0.056 and I took off the zeros that weren't significant, that would turn into 56, right? That's not what significant figures means. It doesn't mean that I can just take those off. Because you can tell that 56 and 0.056 are nowhere near the same number. So don't think of if it's significant, it means I can drop it. Now, when I'm looking at numbers that come at the end of a number, that's when sometimes they kind of disappear, right? But I can't just drop them. I've got to change the number to scientific notation or whatever, and I'll show you that in a moment. So in this number, there are 2 sig figs, and in this number, there are 2 sig figs. And if I wrote 0.0000012, how many sig figs are in that number? 2. Only the 1 and 2. Zeros at the beginning are never significant. What do I do to a number like this? Like this one, y'all, that's a lot of zeros to write. Okay, so what if I had like 10 zeros to write? Typically, we don't write 0.00000000012. What do we do when that occurs for our calculation? We put the number in scientific notation. Okay? Can you put this number, the 0.000012, in scientific notation? 1.2 times 10 to the minus 5. Okay? And y'all should know how to do scientific notation. If you don't, you need to review that. Guys, the number, when we put a number in scientific notation, the number in the exponent has absolutely nothing to do with significant figures. The number in the exponent, what is that telling us? How many places my decimal moves. It has nothing to do with sig figs. The only thing that affects sig figs are right there, the 1.2. Okay, any questions on that first rule? Zeros at the beginning of a number are never significant, right? Okay, the second rule. What about zeros in the middle of a number? Or another way we might say that is if the 0 is in the middle of 2 non-zero digits. Can you give me an example of a number that's going to fit that statement where there's a 0 in the middle of some non-zero digits?
230.
203. How many sig figs are in the number 203? 3. So that one's easy. Zeros in the middle of two non-zero digits, those are always significant. And it doesn't matter how many zeros fall in the middle, y'all. So if I wrote 1,000,000,001, how many sig figs are in that number?
7.
7. Okay, it doesn't matter how many zeros fall in between. They're all significant if they're in the middle. So, at the beginning, never. In the middle, always. Where's the other place you can have zeros? At the end. This is where it can get even trickier. What's the rule for a zero at the end of a number? Do you know? Is it significant? It depends. A zero at the end of a number is only significant if it also falls after a decimal. So you have to watch this statement because there's two things that have to happen for a zero at the end of a number to be significant. Not only does it have to be at the end, but it has to be after a decimal. It's not either or, it's both of those. Okay, you follow what I'm saying? Because if we go back to our first rule, in .056, that zero's after a decimal, isn't it? But it doesn't follow the part that says at the end of a number because it's still at the beginning. Okay? So let's say that my number that I reported was 0.002040. How many? That number right there, that's taken into account all three rules. You got to apply all three. How many sig figs are in that number? 4. Agreed? The 2, the 0, the 4, and the 0. Any questions on sig figs? I think some of y'all have this, right? Having trouble with it? Okay.